though, we're hearing that Liverpool are prepared to once again break the British transfer record to sign Newcastle and Sweden striker Alexander Isak this summer. Florian Wirtz is expected to arrive on Merseyside this evening to complete his £100 million move from Bayer Leverkusen. But going back to Isak, right, I still say that there's a 10% chance that Liverpool get him. But having spoke to Matty Renton, I'm going to do a bit of a leaked DM because he's been very staunch on his stance on this potential transfer. He said all along, 150 mil. There is no price tag. He's priceless. But if 150 mil comes, that's his price, right? And I'm just going to read out a couple of bits from what he said. Because, again, he's my Newcastle mouthpiece. He's where I get my information from. So big him up. So Liverpool are going to Newcastle in the second game of the season. We're going to speak about the Premier League transfers there. The fixture list there as well. And I'm going to the game with him. And he said, lucky me, I'll get to see Isak back at St. James's so soon. And I said, you've changed your tune. And he went, yeah, but you're not Arsenal. So maybe he just didn't want to sell to Arsenal. But he said, I said 150 mil, he's yours.
He's dangling the carrot.
If you're on it, bro, that's the price. He's
dangling the carrot.
And he said, exactly, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Losing him for that much, would accumulate 300 million for us to spend. And that's maybe the only positive. If we do spend that money, it frees them up with PSR and FFP to have £300 million to spend. He said we'd need a rebuild for a squad, Champions League, but he said he'd rather us take Gordon, but that's not going to happen. So if there is an inkling, and especially with Arsenal doing the rounds to try and get a striker, if I was Liverpool in this situation, which I'm not, but I'd wait for Arsenal to sign Sesko, so they've spent all their money. And then, straight after that, 135 million offer on the table for Isak.
Jesus.
Right?
Can't compete with these guys.
Yeah, well, that's what we're moving
money
now. We're the best in the league. So, slap that down, test the waters, see what they're saying. And then if they say no, you did want Jarrell Quansah, right? You wanted him? We can chuck him in.
Do you not have anyone from
Federico Chiesa, we could chuck him in.
What? Okay, now you're being silly.
Maybe. But that's only if they deny the first offer. But is it totally out of the question, Matisse? Is it totally out of the question that he leaves Newcastle this summer for Liverpool?
I like your 10%. I think there's a chance because...
So you can't rule it out?
No, because everybody has their price. Mm-hmm. And Liverpool haven't spent money in the previous window, so now they got all this money. And we don't know how much Nunes is going to sell for. And that might actually cover quite a lot of the Isak cost. I don't see...
Harvey, Quansah, you could cover the whole thing.
This is the thing. Like, net spend-wise, it doesn't have to be crazy for Liverpool if they make the right sales and they get the right money in. So, look, there's still a lot of the window left. I wouldn't rule it out, but you're going to have to pay another... You're going to have to break the British record again.
Yeah, that's
and if you do that, wow, I don't want to see no more... Oh, we can't compete with City. We can't compete with these clubs. They spend too much money. We're just humble little Liverpool trying to get along our way and just trying to bring through the J Spearings through the academies. Nah. We don't want to hear none of that.
And I'm cool to leave that behind, by the way.
Obvious favourites for the league and
100%.
Big spenders.
If Liverpool got Isak, league's done. In my opinion, would you agree?
What I would say is this: as much as it pains me to say it, your quote of 10% is probably higher than that, to be honest.
You reckon?
Yeah, I think so. Because like Matisse says, every player has its price. So it may come down to how much you guys are prepared to pay for him.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying, we're not selling him. But then when you push them a little bit, the Newcastle fans, it's the price is 150. And I think if we did give them that...
Money talks,
man. What the other side of it, if you're a Newcastle fan, is if you were to sell Isak, look at the FFP that clears you up to be able to spend 300 million. You could go and get Ekatike, you could go and get a winger, defender. You could almost spend all of that in the same window to give yourself the absolute best chance to compete in the Champions League, try and retain the League Cup and go for the league title as well.
If we see Newcastle start moving for a striker,
the world should be scared.
Then I'll be worried because then it'll be like they're almost preparing. Because what you don't want to do is sell Isak for 150 or 135 and then everyone in the world knows you got all this money. Yeah. So what you try and do is probably bring in, 40 million striker there.
And from what I can understand, I've never heard
I know what's happening after that.
Then you can kind of tell what's going on.
Then that 10% goes to 80.
with Isak as well, in terms of how he's handled all this. He's always said, "I'm happy." Now that is a bit of an ambiguous term, isn't it? Because yes, I'm happy, but he didn't say that he would stay at Newcastle above. You know,
Well,
I
I think
some players are made it categorically clear, I do not want to leave.
According to Matty Renton, he literally did say, "I'm not leaving," to Matty Renton himself at Box Park.
That doesn't mean anything.
But they've had a few drinks. It's all a bit silly.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's 2 a.m.
I think he'd be fine.
What context? You need to frame that. I mean, was it?
Drinks.
You're not
we'll have to get Matty on the show.
And it was he met him after the Carabao Cup win.
Yeah, he had
so
the trophy
come
in
on,
his
that
hand.
ain't the time to be asking questions like
but
that.
But publicly, what
no,
he
said
has
he's going to
said.
steer. He said he's going to steer. That's
After
it.
winning the
Publicly,
trophy, he's not
the
going to say anything
statements
else.
that I've seen suggested that I'm very happy here. Yeah, fine.
Yeah,
might be.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is. Honestly, I believe he is.
But that doesn't mean to say
Can't be happier somewhere else.
By extension, that
Grass
doesn't
might
mean
be
to
greener.
say you could be happier somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like you said,
I think he'd be fine to do a year with Newcastle in the Champions League
Then
if he
they'd let
had
him go
to.
with
But he
grace.
wants to win titles, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So
Alex Isak. Ooh, if Liverpool get that one over the line, I will become totally, even more unbearable than I already am.
No, I don't think that's possible.
It's not possible. Totally not possible. It's definitely not. But 150 mil, how realistic? Let's get some percentages in the chat right now. I want to see
I think it's higher
some
than 10.
percentages.
I think it's higher than 10.
I mean, I said this for Wirtz, didn't I? Wirtz.
Yes.
I said there's absolutely no chance. So I once again think that there is a very small chance at Liverpool
God grief.
get Isak.
What
if
are we
you-
going to
if
do
you
if
catch
that
my
happens?
drift.
Seriously.
In the chat, we've got 1%, 2%, 30%, 10%, 0, 0.000000001, like Matisse loves. Pratish says 40. We've got a 5%, 0 point sausage percent, says Maury. It's a good one. 15%, 50%, 70%. And the thing is that Liverpool fans are being encouraged by is the top tier journalists at Liverpool who report on Liverpool. Not one of them has ruled it out. And normally, straight away, when Liverpool are linked with a player, one of the top journalists will do his due diligence and say, that's not happening. You can rule that one out. But I'm hearing, the likes of James Pearce and others, Lewis Steele, saying that this is Liverpool's dream signing. So are Liverpool playing the long game and waiting a bit for all these pre-season games to almost disappear? And then later on in the window, you go in for him? Who knows? But I'm sticking with 10%.
I think they'll definitely test the waters.
Where is
That's
Nunes?
why wouldn't
That's
they?
the least I
Why
could
would-
ask
yeah,
for.
why wouldn't
Because
they?
that shows your intent,
Exactly.
at least. Test the waters.
Yeah.
Where is Nunes going to go and how much money are you going to get from him?
At the minute, it's looking like around 50 mil from either Napoli, AC Milan, or if it's the Saudis, 75.
Saudi tax.
Saudi tax.
Mm.
But
And
then
what-
Quanta's 50. We want 40 to 50 for him. Elliot would be 40 to 50. You could probably sell
You're not
Chiesa
getting
for
40
20.
to 50 million for Elliot. What did
Well,
you
that's what
say?
we
How
want.
much did you say for Kwanzaa?
40 is the asking price that Liverpool
Lord
want.
heavens, where are these fees?
Well, he's a Premier League champion. He's English.
Who
he's
cares
young.
if he's a Premier League champion?
No, but
Brewster's a Champions League winner as well.
All right.